We will call to order the regular meeting of the Clarkston Community Schools Board of Education. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. McLean, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. McGinnis?
Here.
Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mrs. Cybers?
Here.
Mrs. Crane?
Here.
Mr. Heyer?
Here.
Mrs. Egan? Mr. Nee?
Here. We have a quorum. We will proceed. Mrs. Egan apologizes. She is ill this evening, so it will be unable to attend, and we certainly wish her a quick recovery. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please? Don't all jump.
I move that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. We have some items that require a roll call. So, Mrs. McLean, if you could please conduct the roll call vote.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybers?
Yes.
Mr. Heyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Egan? Mrs. Crane?
Yes.
Mr. Nee?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 3 is citizens' requests to address the board. You are given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under this item, item 3.1, you can request to address the board on any topic that's on tonight's agenda. And under item 9, you're welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address. Direct your comments to the board president. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. And per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. And Mrs. Allen is good enough to bring that up. Okay, we have one request to address the board under agenda item 5.1, and we will call on you at that time. Thank you. Item 4, superintendent update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President Mead. Today, for our community, we had a very proud moment in the signing of 7 of our athletes going on to the next level to continue to compete. Both great, these students were all great scholars as we were today and are taking it to the next level. And to be specific, I have pictures with 2 of our young ladies are going to be going to Oakland University on scholarships for volleyball. One of our volleyball players is going to Albion also to play. And we have a young man playing football for the Indiana University. And we have another young man going to be going to the University of Southern California, USC, playing football. We have one of our runners who's going to go to the University of Michigan. And we have a soccer player going to K College. So really kind of a nice blend of Division I, Division II programs. And really proud of those kids as they kind of continue on their careers past Clarkston Schools. This past weekend for our community, one of the highlights as being the Holiday Light Parade. There were 35 entries this year, and I want to give out a personal direct shout out. I think she's listening tonight to Kyle Hughes for her assistance in coordinating the event, and all those individuals from National Honor Society, all the judges, all our members of our band and music programs who are there supporting this great community event that we have every year. Also want to give an individual nod out to the Clarkston Community Schools Transportation Unit. If you didn't get to see it, they had a very well decorated lit up bus. I think it really kind of stole the show to me. And they won the Clarkston Pride Award, which again, to our transportation unit, thank you. This week also, congratulations to our Clarkston High School drone team who took 2nd place in the World Championship last week. And we also have a junior high robotics team that won the states and will be competing nationally in April. So again, lots of difference from sports to technology to really community involvement. looking forward over the next week as we wind up school for the holiday break. It's hard to believe it's already upon us by the end of next week, so we'll have those holiday parties in the school, and hopefully we'll wind down for a very solid calendar year 2023, and we're all eager and ready to start 2024. So thank you, President Eaton.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Moving on to our presentation items. Item 5.1 is recognition of the Clarkston High School Music Program Semi. Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, tonight we have Mike Lewis, our Director of Bands, and David Murphy is also on us. Why don't you come up as well, if you don't mind, with Mr. Lewis? And huge point of pride for our community, and I'll let Mr. Lewis tell the story.
I'll kind of walk you through just the pictures that I have here. I just put a slideshow together. Dave, I think, took most of the pictures throughout the, if not all the pictures throughout the fall for our slideshow for the banquet. But this is a picture from the initial day when the semi arrived for the kids to see. So as you can see, we're in uniform. We were getting pictures taken and getting ready to head off to an invitational when it arrived. So a couple brief photos of the students, and that was their first view as it came rolling into the parking lot there. So they got a chance to see that, and you can imagine the excitement level of the students when they got a chance to see this, because they've seen semis for other groups for a number of years now, and now they have one as well. And you can see we got a group photo in front of the semi that day, and our drum majors, of course, displaying the Clarkston, Michigan, that's on the side. So there's a few from that day, and I believe this is also from the initial invitational that day as we were getting ready to load and head out to the first invitational, which was at technically the Lake Orion Invitational, but it was at Lakeland High School, and that's a long story. We won't go into that tonight. So here's a few of the motley crew. We call them the pit crew there as we were unloading at the first invitational. So we have that there, and you can just want to give a thanks to all the parents that are involved with the pit crew, because that's one of the harder working groups that we have around the district. I can guarantee that. There, the students are getting ready once they arrive for that invitational, and a little shout out to Dave here with the photo there. It gives you a look at the inside, the photo, and the amount of room that we have for storage and transportation of all the props and instruments that we have at the invitational there. These are moving a little bit later into the season as we are heading, I believe this may have been prelims, the day of prelims that we had, deciding what groups made it to Ford Field this year. And you can see some of the sponsors on the side there as well. So we want to thank all the sponsors that we have there. And the part that probably isn't seen very often, but the little paw print that we have that sits behind the cab there. With the doors on the side, you can notice there's also some storage underneath as well, so we can store quite a few items there on the trailer. And there is Mr. Dubia there. He has volunteered up to this point to drive the cab for us for the next couple of years. I believe the cab is from his company that he drives for. He's able to use that. So for the next 3 years, Mr. Dubia is going to be able to haul the trailer for us, which is outstanding. And there's another picture from one of the invitationals. All the instruments are set out by the parents so that the students, when they arrive, get off the buses, they can very efficiently come down and grab their instruments, get it put together, and get ready for their performance that night. All the cases lined up, and all this is very easy to store inside the new trailer that we have. So, and moving on to the actual Ford Field performance. So there you can see the Clarkston trailer sitting right next to Ford Field, right outside Comerica there. As well. And a few of the students that are at this point actually packing up all their equipment. They're finished performing at this point. And then a number of the parents as well that are helping, so you can see how they can get everything up. It just kind of rolls out the back, which is very convenient for them. I know it's a much easier process loading and unloading out of this trailer than it was out of the little ones that we were using, because everything doesn't need to be torn down quite so much. And then this is a thank you to all the sponsors that have volunteered. You saw, or not volunteered, but are sponsoring the trailer for us this year. You saw some of the ads that were on the side, but these are also on the back. And I do want to, of course, point out the honorary pit crew member, Ken Brown, on the bottom right. He recently passed away this fall, but he's been with us since the mid-90s, helping out with that. So Ken Brown was an integral part, so we want to make sure that he was honored on the trailer as well. For that. And there's just the last picture you've seen earlier for that. So, Dave?
Well, he said most of it, but it was something that we really needed. We've been working on this for a long time. We just about had one acquired, and then COVID happened. We lost all of our sponsors. All of them put it off. We were like just ready to pull the trigger. It was almost a done deal, and then COVID hit. We actually had someone that was going to donate almost a full semi to us as well. So took us a couple more years to then get that back together, try to save from sponsors, things like that. And then we had a lot of sponsors that came through, as you saw. Great shout out to P2A, who always helps us out every year. They really helped us in getting this. Waterfall Jewelers, again, like we saw, was another key one. McLaren really helped us out as well. They were a big one, along with James Altini Realtor. They were four of the top ones that gave the most, that really helped us get us going. Then we had lots of small ones. There's a lot of donations that aren't on there. These are just ones that gave $1,500 or more that are on the truck. So to be on the truck, you have to do $15 or more to have your logo on there. But we have lots of $500 ones, lots of $250 ones, lots of $1,000 ones as well that helped us do this. But the need was, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen us at the football games, but the need was for more room. Well, at the football games, you don't see all the props that we have. We have tons of props. There's a lot more to it than just what you see at a football game. So we were taking several trailers at a time, plus we had to rent a U-Haul almost every weekend that we went somewhere. And the cost of that, was up there. Finding drivers, so you had to get 4 to 5 parent drivers using their own car. They have to have a hitch, will their truck pull it? So we really needed this. We were literally one of the only bands that didn't have a semi from our division. And some of them, like Rockford, Plymouth Canton, they have 2 semis. And I will say ours is the best semi. They were all in awe. They've all come up to us at all the competitions. It is really cool. So it was paid for by sponsors, not by money from the kids or anything else. I just want to make sure that's really a key point, is that it was all raised by that. With it being paid for now, the great thing is going forward every year, each sponsor, they're committed to have it for a year. Whether we choose to leave it on longer, we could, because it costs more to probably take it off, than to do something. But as we get new ones every year, it's almost, you could say, free money to go towards what we need, whether it's instruments, uniforms, gas for the truck, things like that. And it's great that we have a driver for 3 years. After that, usually it seems like every couple years we have someone who can drive something like that, so that's always the hope. Worst case scenario, it's not a lot of money to pay a driver, but that would come from just our sponsors. But again, the initial thing is done, the paying for it. Now it's just the keep up, the upkeep and doing things like that. But it is really cool. The kids love it. It's safer for the parents to load, is another key thing. And we can load and unload in about 15 minutes versus sometimes it was an hour, and taking many trailers. So it's a great thing. We love it, and we love having it sit out in front of the, it's like a huge billboard sitting out in front of the school, and I think it's a good representation of the school, and we're getting tons of feedback from other schools and businesses, and more businesses are now contacting me because they see it. They're like, how can I get on the truck? So pretty cool. Thank you.
The Clarkston High School Marching Band, it's a tremendous source of pride for us and our community. They are, those of you that have seen them at football games or in competitions, they are just a first-class outfit. Those kids work extremely hard to attain that degree of excellence. So we thank them. Mr. Lewis, we thank you for all your efforts. Mr. Murphy's been president of the Band Boosters for years. He's spent countless hours to further the cause of the band. So thanks to both of you. Any other comments from the board?
I just think it's beautiful. I think what I really like about it too is I really think it honors the students who work so hard day and night, sometimes into the late days in the fall when it's already getting dark out there and everything. And I really think it's a really great symbol of pride that they can show in the work that they do. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a second presentation. Item 5.2 is our annual pupil accounting enrollment update from Mr. Lucido. Dr. Ryan, do you have any comments? Or?
We'll let Mr. Lucido get the presentation. Hopefully it gives us, it's the first phase of our multi-part budgeting process here at Clarkston Community Schools, and really looking at getting a ground base of how many pupils we have coming to the door really sets the stage for everything else.
Yep. Good evening. So as Mr. Dr. Ryan stated, this is after fall count. We do this annually, and this is a breakdown of where we're at in each of our programs in comparison to fall count 22. So I want to explain what these different programs are so you have an understanding, because they're going to be repeated on the following slides. So when we say CCS loss, that is Clarkston resident students. Those are students that show up to our buildings every day. The Clarkston Virtual, that is our Clarkston Virtual program. So in that program, we're up 27.82. The RVS loss that you see of 959, that program is a relationship that we had with the curriculum provider that we ended going into 23-24. So because of that, you see a huge decrease in FTE for that program because it is no longer continuing. The shared time gain, that's 437. And shared time is the relationships we have with private schools. That's where we go in and provide co-curricular classes, and we're able to count the student for the fraction of the time that they're there. And then at the bottom, at the 578, that's all these programs together, what we are down. And later in the presentation, I'll kind of explain, because all of these programs, whether it's a shared time FTE or it was an FTE with the Renaissance Virtual program, it has a different financial impact. So I'm going to go through that a little bit later. But if you look at the red line up there, that is all of these FTEs put together. We are at 86, 51, 34. My eyes can make that out. That's where we are at with all of our FTEs in the district. The blue line that you see, where we're at the 6436.27, those are students who actually show up at Clarkston buildings every day. That dip you see during 2020, that was during COVID. That's when students left the brick and mortar buildings. And I will jump down to that purple line that you see at 1379.84. That's when we created Clarkston Virtual. So we had that many students move out of our brick and mortar buildings into our virtual program that we created almost instantly to accommodate the parents' wants. That has declined to, it was just over 200, and now we are at 162 in that program. The green line you see is shared services. We are currently just over 2,000 FTEs in the shared service program. And then the Renaissance Virtual program, when we started that program with that curriculum provider, it was at 507, and then we shot up to over 1,000, and now we are down at 4967. The 4967, those students are actually enrolled in our Clarkston Virtual program right now, but those students are either out of district or they are on restorative agreements. So like in lieu of expulsion, we may have let them go into that program, or we may have expelled them and allowed them to go into the virtual program. So we wanted to keep that separate for coding purposes, so that's why they're not in the Clarkston Virtual, but it is the same curriculum, which is Pearson and Lincoln. Is there any questions before I go on? This was a very information-heavy slide. Okay. This next slide, this shows the relationship between headcount and FTE. FTE is a full-time equivalent. So the biggest thing on this slide that jumps out to me is the number of shared time students we have. So we're at 6,882 shared time students. We have more students in the shared time program than we have in Clarkston brick and mortar buildings. So it is a ton of work, and the program has expanded over the years, but we put in a lot of work, and if you look at the green line down there, it shows the FTEs. So out of all the students we have there, we only count a fraction of their FTE, and that's why we're a little over the 2,000. Okay? In the other programs, the FTE and the head count mirror each other. It just really stands out with shared service, the way the program works. This is our students by grade level. We didn't see anything significant here. We stayed somewhat consistent over the years. This is our key subgroup enrollment. So we track our free and reduced, our ESL population, special education. We did dig in when we saw this with that spike you see from 1512 to 1709 and back down to 1472 in the free and reduced lunch. That is our students that we had enrolled in the Renaissance Virtual program. Not to the pupil, but pretty close. That really explains why we went up and went back down. It was those students who qualified, who came in, but then also left as we ended our relationship with that curriculum provider. This is our attrition data that we've been tracking of why students leave Clarkston Community Schools. I know in the past the board has been very concerned about our dropout rate, so I was surprised to see when we compiled this data that we only had one dropout for 23-24. So we dug into that with the team over at Renaissance High School. They are doing not a better job, but they're paying more attention to it and working with students to find alternative placements if they're not successful at Renaissance. So that could be GED completers, that could be other virtual clinical programs. And then we have that data to include, so it doesn't look like those students just stop their education. So I don't know if there truly is a decrease that much in our dropouts, or if we just have better data this year. So it's something we'll continue to monitor. This is our new K-12 enrollment data. This has been pretty consistent. What sticks out to me is the push we had back from homeschool after COVID for the 21 year. We had 50 students come from homeschool that year. This slide shows the growth of classes over time. So if you go back to 97, 98, you're starting under 500 and you're ending over 6 and sometimes over 7. This last year we lost more students over the course. When you look from 10, 11, we went from 610 down to 550. But the years before that it was more growth. And Clarkston's growth has kind of stopped. It's kind of consistent with some of the information I'll share on these future slides.
So John, can I ask
Please.
a question about that? It looks to me on this cohort chart, like we have maybe the third biggest kindergarten class in all of these. So like if I sort of look at the numbers and want to follow them forward, I mean, just rolling things forward would seem like enrollment would pick up. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. It is, and I have our birth rate study on a couple slides from now. It does look like we're leveling off, and I have Plant Moran's data and just as a direct comparison with our birth rates. So I agree with you. I think we're going to plateau with student loss here. So this is just a table basically showing the same information. So I'll just go through the difference column over there to the right. So our Young 5s K-12, that's down 84. Renaissance Virtual is down 959 FTEs. Our post-high, that's our 18 to 26 special education programs, up 1.78. And then Clarkston Virtual is up 27.82. Our ECC is down 4.7. That's a total of 1,019. And then we have our share time FTE gain. So our total programs that were FTE that were down is 581.32.
Can you remind us what we budgeted?
I think we budgeted 50.
Like total FTE?
Yep, 50. We budgeted 50 down.
And what number, like the total amount we budgeted for FTE? If that would change, the total amount.
Oh, we only budgeted 7 down? I thought we were at 50. So 7 FTE down was what we were totally down. We planned on being down.
But we budgeted the RVS loss.
I don't
knew about that.
No, we didn't. No,
did
it's
not.
having a negative impact. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this happened. This was in June when we moved. This happened late in the school year last year. And I will say the share time growth that we had this year was significant. We were very fortunate. It was Krista and her team did a phenomenal job this summer. We entered in relations with Divine Child, Marion, and a few other schools, and it really helped offset the loss. I'm going to cover financial impact of some of these changes. These are our school of choice programs. The fall of 23, that's not new students. That's how many students we have enrolled from all the years that we've been doing it. So we've been doing open enrollment for a number of years now with our kindergarten and our special programs, and we only have 326 currently, and 117 of those are students, our employees' children. And this is the capture rate. So this is something we've been doing for a number of years here. We take the birth rates and then the Young 5's kindergarten enrollment and come up with a percentage. And if you see, we've stayed pretty consistent. The last couple of years, we've done pretty good, as you were pointing out, Mr. Heyer. Like for 23, we got 4.81% of Oakland County's birth rates, 22, 4.73, and 4.34. And what we do with this study is take the last 3 years and then project forward to see what our kindergarten numbers would look like. And that's where we're getting the 597, 606, 604. That's using 4.63% and forecasting it forward based off the birth rates for those particular years. And what I did down at the bottom, that will show you what the kindergarten and Young 5 classes based off birth birth rate capture rate, 3-year averages, and then Plant Moran, as part of the junior high bond project, we did another study with them in '22, and that's what it has for us for each of those years. And then at the bottom, I did a breakdown of our overall enrollment and what that would look like. So if the capture rate for birth rates that I did is closer, we would be up 30 students. Plant Moran has us down 44, and then 25. I have us down 8, they have us down 44, and then I would have us down 3, they'd be down 33. Okay.
I have a question. Do we have access, or is there such data that tells us that the birth rate and the residency of students potentially in 3 or 4 year preschool exist, but they're yet not in our district? Do we know, can we access students who are not utilizing the services we have to offer? Do we have the means to find them through the birth rate and residency?
That's a good question. Like for our preschool, to market them?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that I thought in years past that the county has a means from the birth rate or from the birth rate of our local hospitals to give us a birth rate increase or for that matter, decrease, but basically can categorize children who have been born that should be in 3 or 4 year. And so all I'm just saying is that if we're under capacity in both our 3 and 4 year programs, and that data might be available by Oakland County, could we do something with it? Could we reach out to those parents and let them know the services are available for them?
Well, I have the big number because it's up there. So like the births of 21 would probably be in that area. I don't have data on who those individuals are to market.
Okay.
But that's something we'd have to look into that. I think there might be some services that you can. I can't remember the name of the company that does studies like this. They might be able to get some data, something like that.
Are they not in business anymore?
Mr. Lucido, when the Plant Moran projections, when's the last time that was updated?
22.
22, okay.
So it's very recent and it covers the years of this presentation and beyond.
And can you explain again how yours is different? What do you do differently?
I don't know what Plant Moran does with all of theirs. I think they take into like building permits and certain things like that into their equations, their study as well. I just start doing straight birth rate capture for Clarkston. But Plant Moran, I think they use building permits. A large portion of theirs is birth rates, though.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Lucido, could you just
The
go
last 2 years seem to be, of all the years going back to 1998, the last 2 years had a higher capture rate, or 2 of the 3 highest capture rates. So that's probably your 4.63% might even be conservative.
Yes.
I mean, it's speculative, certainly, you never know. But
No, I would agree with that, yes.
Sorry, going back to the last slide really quickly. The second highest, or actually the highest school of choice number we have is the Young 5 in kindergarten. Have we tracked or can we track how many of those kids go on in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, or do we start losing them? Do we know?
No, we know who they are.
Uh-huh. Have we looked at that number?
How many have we lost? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head, but we definitely have that. My first thought on this, and I didn't go that extra step,
It's a
but
lot.
it seems low
Okay.
a little bit, because Dr. Ryan, how many years have we been doing this? 4?
At least 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years? Well, I guess we started at 25. We did 25,
We did.
35, and this last one we did 63, I believe.
And then I think COVID probably messed some of that up too.
Yeah, yes it did.
But so I was just curious because that number's not in here because they wouldn't be considered that anymore, I don't think, right? After that first year, they're not counted as a school of choice, or are they still?
No, yes, they are.
They are.
Yep, they're always, that's what this is, that tracks that. So I
Okay.
guess this does answer that question.
Okay,
you wanted.
okay,
Yes.
that's good.
I just don't know the difference between how many actually enrolled in Young 5 kindergarten and how many we lost to get us to that 153 number
Okay.
up there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lucido.
Oh, no, I got a couple more slides.
I'm sorry?
I have a few more slides.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Okay, so this is my summary analysis. This is very related to the finances, and this is very rough. This doesn't mean that when you get the budget, you're gonna, or projections for next year, that you're gonna see it up or down by this much, because there's so many things that play into it. But I just want to talk to you about just what the impact of this, and these numbers are rounded too. But when we lost 84 brick and mortar kids for the Clarkston program, and then we are up 27.82. Those Clarkston virtual kids are residents, so whether they're here, so it's the difference between those two is what we lost for our residents. The virtual program lost 959 students, and then in shared service we were up 437.86 FTEs. I'm sorry. Those changes right there is roughly a $5 million loss, roughly carried forward. That's what the impact of losing that many pupils is. What was very significant to Clarkston Schools is our shared service programming is only allowed to grow by 10% FTE each year, okay? And we always thought that that was based on what we were able to count. Well, the private schools that we work with, if they added new classes or new teachers and were able to count additional FTEs, we've always let them grow, and we've kind of covered the expenses knowing that we'll have 10% in the bank to go for next year, okay? For working with the MDE, there was a change in the interpretation of the growth. So what they did is allowed us to not only grow by 10%, but they were allow us to grow by 10% on what we didn't count, that we were like hedging for the next year. What that counted in roughly for last year, for 22-23, is $2.7 million. For next year, that will kind of carry forward with us. That's what that impact of that interpretation was. And again, these numbers are very rough. So when you take that into consideration against this $5 million rough decrease that we had, this is probably going to be like a $2.3 million going into 23-24. Okay? Doesn't mean our budgets, it doesn't mean we have to cut 2.3. I'm just telling you the impact of losing this many FTEs and the dollars associated with them. Okay?
And are you expecting this 2.7, you said every year, or is it just
Yeah.
because of the fluke in?
No, it's not a fluke, because they were allowing us to grow by 10%, and what we were anticipating growing by 10% for 22-23, we were allowed to grow by more than that, what we weren't able to count. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that will, now the 10% is based off that new figure moving forward.
Build
so
off that every year?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now our 10% is just a larger figure moving forward. Okay. And the recommendations, I think we should continue monitoring our enrollment trends for staffing and our budget cycle. Continue our gen ed and special programming open enrollment, and continue to look for opportunities to grow our virtual program and our shared service programming. We do think we have some opportunity to grow our Clarkston virtual program, and then our shared service programming, we've added some additional FTEs. I want to thank the Board of Education for that, because I think we're going to be better staffed to keep up with our growth going into 24-25.
Are you concerned about the lack of, physical students in the building? At what point, I know financially we're covering it, but at what point do we start losing sports teams or those types of impacts?
It gets harder to staff our special programs and all the different electives and languages and the CSM Techs and the IB programs. The numbers continually go down when you don't have enough students to spread those. That's why the open enrollment, it might be something that we want to consider expanding, maybe into different grade levels potentially, to kind of build that up. You don't want to end up with an Andersonville or North Sash where they have 1 3rd grade class. I think that's what we really want to. It's not. I don't think it's an immediate concern at the moment, but we don't want to see. We don't want to see our numbers go down. So it's nice to see that the projections, when you look at the birth rates in Plant Moran, that we're kind of plateauing, but they have said we were plateauing for a number of years now, and it hasn't really come to fruition. So I'm hoping that this new data is trending, and these new neighborhoods we see coming up are bringing more students in.
And is it next year that all 4-year-old preschool is free, for the whole state?
I don't know if that's approved yet.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it is,
can
and
we
I'm not
mark
super
it?
educated on it. Dr. Ryan, do you know?
It's under consideration right now, but it has not been approved, is the last one I had heard.
If it does get approved, can we like try to capture kids then
Oh,
with
sh-
open enrollment?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah, absolutely. If something like that happens.
And that would be one route that I recommend, that we get them through early childhood, and then we just
Yeah.
keep them through 12th grade
Yeah.
if we can. But, yeah. We'll have more to come on that into the spring. We got some ideas to shift things around. It's been nice to be able to level out and increase our kindergarten with that piece, but we, from time to time, have to add staff with it, because we're going to always keep class sizes low for Clarkston kids that are in our program, obviously. But if we were to spread it out more in the K-5 realm, we would have probably a scenario where we could probably go up towards 100, but not increase a single teacher. We could just absorb them and keep our low class sizes the way they are. So, more to come on that. We'll present a couple different scenarios for the board to discuss, and then we'll take whatever direction you guys want to go in.
And then one more question. The IB program, is it normal to have 0 students from like school of choice? Because it's like the last 2 years we've had 0. Can we market that better, or is there any room there?
We could. I know Dr. Ryan's done some work trying to partner with another school district to get our numbers up so we can continue to offer that program. But, you know, we've done mailers in the past. We've done Facebook advertising for all of our open enrollment. We have pushed it out, and it hasn't produced. But could we do better marketing? And it's yes, but potentially.
There's a certain degree of market saturation too, and you have
Yes.
like an International Academy in Bloomfield, sole proprietor that takes slots from around Oakland County. We've been looking at some other schools that send students to those schools, and they send them at a very high premium, compared to their overall value of their FTE they get from the state, of consolidating with them and more of a co-op with us, as opposed to us trying to profit from them, just to add more kids and defray some of the cost. So it's kind of a work in progress.
Comments? Yeah, I think if we build the program without it being a for-profit build, that we can entice other people to look at us versus going to West Bloomfield too. My other question is, with the Renaissance Virtual, is there any means that we can provide different virtual services to recapture those families?
I think those families that left, we were hoping to not lose that many FTE, but I think that just showed us how committed they were to that particular curriculum. So we did try, we did market, and we didn't have any success. I think our opportunity with virtual is to really build up our Clarkston virtual, because our curriculum cost is minimal, so it's almost, we probably profit more off a Clarkston virtual student than we do a brick and mortar student when you factor in the building and so forth.
So that program's curriculum is vastly different than our Clarkston virtual program?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Macedo. As always, a very informative presentation. Thank you. Moving on to action items. Item 6.1 is approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any discussion or questions for Ms. Lucido? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.2 is approval of purchase of band instruments. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the purchase of instruments from Washington Music Center for a total of $113,565.34 as presented.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Dr. Ryan, do you have anything to add to this item?
No, it's just part of the long-term commitment to our music program. It was supported by our voters and part of our overall bond, and it's the first of a couple series that we want to do to support our musical instruments.
Okay, thank you. Any comment or question?
What is a euphonium?
Mrs. Cybers, I'm sorry.
What is a euphonium?
A euphonium?
Yes.
I'm going to look to Mr. Murphy.
It's a Yamaha.
It's in between a tuba, but smaller, and you can hold it, it's kind of big, and it has a big belly.
Okay. That would be great.
It's gives you the base.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
I was just going to reaffirm what Dr. Ryan said just acknowledge that the source of funding for this is from the 2022 bond campaign.
For which, again, we thank the community for supporting that. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.3 is approval of a computer purchase for the ITV studio. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the purchase of computers from Apple for a total not to exceed $35,000 as presented.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Mr. Heyer is our representative on the ITV board. Do you or Dr. Ryan have any comments on this?
Part of this is replacing computers that get used in the classroom there for our curricular program. We get to do it from our ITV funds, which is nice. And the other part of this is the machines that get used for their broadcasting, all the things that they broadcast. And just Saturday at the parade, their laptop they were using bit the dust. So this purchase could not be more timely.
Very good, thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 6.4 is approval of the debt service account transfer. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the debt transfer of $101,888.83 from Fund 35 to Fund 39 as presented.
Support.
Motion has been made and supported.
Can I just get some
This is a fairly
further?
routine transfer. Mrs. Rogers is here to answer any questions. Mrs. Love.
Yeah, can I just get a further understanding of what we're doing here?
This is our 2015 refunding, and we made our final payment, and so that debt is gone. That bond is paid off. We paid it off in May of 2023. So now whatever's left over in any accounts that I have, and I had cash sitting there of 101, we by law have to transfer that to a different fund, and the board has to approve that transfer before I can make the transfer. And then that is cleaned, and we're done with that debt.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Any other questions?
Sorry, is this a new fund or is it adding to an existing fund?
No, it's not a new fund. We're moving it to the 2016 refunding fund account. In debt, we have like 9 different, I have like 8 fund accounts ranging between 31 and 39. I'm just moving that money
So you're
to
just moving it to one that already exists?
different debt fund, which the closest one is the 2016 refunding.
Okay.
And because these are debt service funds, they must by law be, but that bond has been paid off, they have to be moved to an
Yes.
existing,
And I have to
another
have, and I have to
current
have board
service account.
approval. At least that's what RJ tells me. I have to have board approval to be able to do the actual moving it.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We have no report or discussion items tonight. We are now to the second opportunity for the public to make comments. Citizens are welcome to address the board on any topic at this point on the agenda. Seeing our vast crowd out there, is there anybody who wishes to make a comment? Okay, hearing none. Information items. Our next Board of Education meeting will be Monday, January 15th. It will be our board self-evaluation workshop beginning at 5:30. Our next regular meeting will be Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. here in the board office. Item 11 is a negotiations discussion. May I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of collective bargaining negotiation discussion?
I move to proceed with closed session.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Mrs. McLean, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Crane.
Yes.
Mrs. Sivers.
Yes.
Mrs. Egan. Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Heyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Need.
Yes, motion carried. We will move into the conference room for a closed session. There will be no business conducted after we conclude the closed session. We will adjourn. So.